Greetings, everyone, and welcome to our symposium on the advances in ophthalmic learning and skills transfer. So pleased that you all could join us. We're excited about the panelists that we have today. Just a special thanks to Andy Chen and Lawrence Sika from Orbis for the behind-the-scenes production assistance that they're providing. Our hope is to address really a rather broad topic today, but to help us focus that topic down to some things that I think will be relevant and very interesting just because they're new developments and things that are advancing rapidly. We're going to be using our experts to help us discuss areas of artificial intelligence, mixed reality simulation, virtual reality, some of the advances in those arenas. They have some wonderful experiences to share with you today, a live demonstration that we will do. So a lot on tap today. In general, the webinar is just broadly divided into sort of three big sections. One is just introductory information that makes sure we're all on the same page about what we're talking about today, the terminology we'll be using, the vocabulary and so on, because this is a domain, the learning domain. We're ophthalmologists. This is not what we talk about every day. You know, we talk about the Utrata forceps. You know, we don't talk about the latest thing in learning technology. So we just need a minute to get our heads around what we're going to be talking about today. And I hope to do that as the first part of this and use that as an opportunity then to launch into some discussion about some of the challenges that we face and how that actually is used in today's world and in our training worlds in particular. Secondly, there will be then a live demonstration of some new advances in technology that Hog Strike is developing. Dr. Evo will be leading that demonstration, and looking forward to that. And then finally, we'll take some time just for you all in the audience to share with us some of your comments, perhaps, but more importantly, any questions that you might have for our distinguished panelists and from their experiences and educational backgrounds. So it's an open discussion, and at the end that we hope will engage you all in the topic that we have for today. So let's begin. I've asked the panelists that they would introduce themselves. I'll just invite Dr. Evo to begin, and I ask each of our panelists to say a little bit about themselves, and then we can move forward from there. Dr. Evo.
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm going to be with a fantastic scenario here to do some demonstrations. I'm very honored, especially to be with Dr. Strauss, who is a big leader and a motivation for us to go forward with this technology. It's a real honor.
Thank you. Thank you. Marshall.
Morning, Glenn. I'm Marshall Dial. I'm the Vice President of Education and Simulation Market Development for Hog Strike. I've had the pleasure to collaborate with Orbis now for a number of years. I've known Glenn for many years and have admired his work in global ophthalmology immensely. So to do this session in partnership with Orbis is, as Dr. Ferrara said, an honor. As you rightly pointed out, Glenn, we usually talk about how you do phaco or how you do capsulorhexis, or what are the global implications by which we benefit from teaching surgery better in emerging markets. This is a little bit different a topic, and I love your format. This is why I was so excited to do it, because I think there is a lot of intellectual clutter around the whole subject of AI. So the structure of your webinar, I think, is very insightful, and I hope that collectively we can bring some clarity and some positive energy to the potential of this emerging technology to advance ophthalmic learning globally. So thank you for having us.
Thank you. Let's see, Dr. Ivo, I believe you're in Mexico, and you are in Canada now. Is that where you are at the moment, or where are you, Marshall?
Me? I live in Toronto, Canada. Yes, so I'm home for a change.
And last but not least, we have our representative from the UK. Paul, would you say a bit about yourself so we can know about you?
Good. I think it's morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. Thanks to everyone for having me here. I'm probably the newest kid in the block. I've recently joined Fundamental XR as a Chief Product and Technology Officer. I come from a background of, well, I'm a physicist by training, so please be kind in the ophthalmic surgery jargon. I'm still learning and catching up. But I come from a history of building and scaling technology startups in the medtech and health tech space, particularly around interoperative solutions and software as a medical device solutions. So I've recently joined Fundamental XR, and I'm really actually very personally excited by this opportunity, not just because I enjoy having an impact, but a very personal relationship with eye health, as my father struggled with cataracts and macular degeneration for much of his later life. And I've got a lot of time for the work that the folks in this call do and how you can really help improve people's lives. So it's quite an honor to be here. It's really a wonderful opportunity to have an impact in something that means so much to everyone. And thanks for having me.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you all once again for being part of this. I'm looking forward to each of you and me getting to know each of you. I'm Dr. Glenn Strauss. I have a long history of working in the international training arena, primarily with Mercy Ships for some 20 years, worked in over 36 different countries doing training. So it's quite a broad spectrum of experiences that I've had in that regard. Also, I've been able to engage in development, research and development of simulation, and have been a primary subject matter expert on several significant projects over the years. And in some ways that's brought me to this point where, I'm getting older. We need surgeons who have experience to be able to download themselves into Dr. Evo's, tools so that he can carry the ball forward, have shoulders to stand on, so to speak. So we're looking forward to how we can optimize and leverage the learning that has gone on for years and somehow capture and focus and optimize the accessibility of that information and the experiences that go along, the needed experiences to go along with it for those who are coming after us. So this is a learning seminar in essence. And but at the heart of that is going to be some very interesting and unique technologies that will help us, I think, gather and grasp these important pieces and deliver them in much better ways in the years to come, and really in the months to come too. So to help us so you've gotten to know us a little bit, to help us get to know you a little bit in the audience, we've constructed a very brief outline of questions that we'd like you to respond to. They will come up on your screen, I believe. And if you would take a minute to answer each of the questions as they come up, we'll give you about 30 seconds to answer each question as it comes up. Here's the first one. Do you currently engage in ophthalmic learning or training activities? Just a simple yes, no. If you quickly answer that, yes or no, you're currently engaged in any ophthalmic learning or training activities. As those who are involved in the eye care industry and ophthalmology itself, I would bet that quite a few of us are involved in this. And notice that we can't vote. So it says on my panel. So yes, so 79%, almost 80% of the attendees today are involved. Let's get to the second question. So that means this will be a relevant topic, is what I would say that means. Training for complex tasks, such as eye surgery, includes three components really, skills, knowledge, and attitude. The SKAs of training, they're called. Which, in your opinion, of the following categories need the most improvement? That is do we need to focus most on the cognitive training, the skills transfer, or attitude modeling? If you just pick one, I'd be really interested to know kind of where you see the predominant needs these days, the predominant needs that we face. So if you go ahead and answer that. Skills transfer, it's very interesting to me. We do pretty good, it seems, on cognitive training, so not as much of a need there. We know we have good models in our mentors and those who are senior surgeons and so on to model the attitudes. maybe we can do better in skills transfer. So this also means that our topic today is extremely relevant because that's exactly what this is going to be about, the skills transfer technologies in the learning arena. So third question, scale of 1 to 5, how important to your daily life as a surgeon are the advances that are being made in skills transfer and cognitive training? Do you see it as not important at all, not relevant, or extremely important? If you would just give a minute and answer for us those what you would prioritize in your own daily life as being most important. I didn't see the oh, there it is. So either very or extremely important. I'm really, frankly, glad to hear that. What that means is we have learners among us today, people who want and know the value of learning. And granted, it may be a field that we're not all as familiar with as we are with our own surgical techniques and expertise, but it means that we know it's something that's important. And so I'm very glad to hear that. I think that means, again, we have information, I hope, that will scratch this itch that we might have now about how to gather and utilize information best. And the fifth question, we have one last question. Do you believe AI, as you understand it today, will be a game changer or just a helpful supplement to traditional training? In some ways, this is a question about, what is AI a passing fad? Is it actually relevant to training at all? Is really the most important thing that we just have great, great trainers, people that are at our side? What do you see as when you compare AI and traditional training? Interesting. Almost divided. Almost divided. And that also is, I think, makes the topic we will have today, I hope, not just interesting, but in fact, challenging. Because the reality is, a lot of us, myself included, for some time used the term AI and had not a clue what it meant. We just said it because everybody was saying it. So what in the world actually is it? And it may well be by the time we finish today, you might say, we may find that last question changes a bit. I hope so, actually, because I do believe we're at the beginning of a season where we will see some of the advances in technology actually become more significant as time is going on. And because of that, we will find ourselves in a place where those among us, myself included, who have spent years sitting side by side with, and Dr. Ivo, sitting side by side with trainees, sweating with them, panicking about what they're doing, that those experiences now we'll be able to focus on some of the more nuanced training aspects than we have been able to focus on before. So thank you so much for taking the time to answer our questions. Our topic today is intended to cover all of this and with latest and soon coming innovations. So this is not really a think tank group exactly. I hope we'll challenge you, we'll stimulate ideas, but we want to stay relevant. So the idea is that those of you who are involved in learning activities, and I think from the survey, it looks like most all of you, this would apply to you, and hopefully inform, maybe inspire a bit, challenge your thinking to be lifelong students, lifelong learners of our craft. We also want to take, as I said, take a bit of time to kind of demystify this arena, this domain, this learning domain, particularly with regard to some of the terminology that you hear these days. So the training systems that we have, make sure that we're all kind of tracking together. Those of you we're I'm sure represent dozens, if not more, training institutions. Those of you who are listening today or who will be listening to the recording of this webinar later. And because of that, you are well aware that almost every training institution has its own sort of characteristics. And one of the things that these technologies do is kind of universalizes the information, democratizes is sometimes the word that's used for it. It makes it accessible across the board, but it also provides a standard for what that sounds like, what that looks like even. So I want to give you some ideas of some of the terms that we're using to describe all that. One is a very basic term is blended learning. It's a term that's used to describe what happens when individuals are receiving input from others and they're pursuing information on their own. It's blended learning. The two come together to produce a picture of learning that is self-driven, self-motivated, and is required learning. So I'm sure you would all agree, most all of us are in blended learning situations. However, blended learning these days means something a little different than that. It actually refers to specific platforms that do that blending for us. When you talk about blended learning, you're actually talking about a term that's used for systems that combine computer systems that combine in-person and autonomous learning pathways for autonomous learning. And they do that using what are called learning management systems. So no surprise, there's a way that this all can be put together so that you can see how an individual is going down the path. And that pathway is defined by what we call a learning management system. CyberSight is a learning management system. It gives you a pathway to follow. If you're interested in phacoemulsification, you start at with this point and you move through various points, and it gives you gates that you go through to be able to access the next points. And that way it provides sort of hopefully an optimized learning sort of situation. All of that is combined on what are called learning platforms or remote learning platforms, which in effect are just cloud-based systems of data, information, and management systems all together, from which users can develop specialized interests and develop their own interest in different things. In our case, in ophthalmic surgery. However, you all know that the main interest that you say were the main thing. So these are great for cognitive learning. All these systems are great for developing this part right here. But what about this part right here? The hands, the eyes, the surgical component. Not as good for that, right? So if you're watching a video of a surgery, that's helpful. If you're listening to someone describe what they're doing, that's helpful. That's what learning management systems do currently, is they kind of take you through the cognitive steps, the cognitive process of learning. Very important, critical, basic information. Getting your head straight is what I would say to help move forward then with developing the actual skills. The skills transfer part needs to be, in the future, as time goes on, more included, I would say, in learning management systems. And the question is, how in the world are we going to do that, because it's so complex? So here's, I think, where it gets really interesting and brings us to the focus of our topic today. Because today we're going to talk about how that's already happening. In what ways are those things being brought together now so that you as a learner or your trainees as learners in your system, in your training systems, can take what they're getting in their head and start experiencing that with their hands and their eyes in different ways, and in ways that help them to actually learn the skills, not just the knowledge that goes with it. So simulation, let me talk a little bit about the two things we'll talk about. We're going to talk about simulation, and we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. Simulation is just a word for these days for presenting complex challenges in controllable scenarios for engagement and manipulation. That's what it is. It can involve anything from steering a ship, running an oil platform, learning to fly an airplane, and doing cataract surgery, by the way, which is what we're going to talk about today. So it's a fascinating whole world out there that's much bigger than just our domain, much bigger than any one of these things, because it has such versatility and provides such a window into specific aspects of skills that are needed to be successful in whatever it is you're trying to do. Even your golf game can improve by simulation, these days. So it covers a broad spectrum, but we're going to be talking about specifically the type of simulation that we're going to use for training in ophthalmology. There's also different aspects to simulation. If it's going to simulate something for us to learn a skill, that means it has to not just challenge our mind, it has to be something we can feel, has to be something we can see in a realistic sort of way. And in some ways, it has to be something we can even hear. Just think about your phaco machine and the sound that it makes, for example. That's part of what you learn when you're a surgeon, is how this all blends together to an experience that makes you a successful surgeon. So simulators combine these things with different degrees of success and different degrees of fidelity, different degrees of realism, but it's really not about the realism per se. It's about how each of these elements contributes to a specific aspect of learning. That's what we're going to be talking about. So it adds not just it's not just a cognitive learning experience, it's what's called psychomotor learning. So it's the hand-eye coordination. It's what you as a surgeon learn when you're actually sitting at the microscope, using your hands, figuring out how to make the eye do what you want it to do with these two little instruments in this microscopic environment. I mean, that's pretty incredible when you think about it. And people who watch us do what we do are always amazed, that how can you do that? And there's the suture floating in the air, things like that. So we have an opportunity to use simulation to help us in a very unique way because of what we do. It also includes, so there's the feeling, there's the sound, there's the vision, but there's also different ways of presenting simulation. That's the other aspect of simulation. Simulation can be totally virtual. It can be a silicone eye. That's a simulation. When you go to your wet lab, the animal eye is a simulation of the human eye. It's a physical representation of it. So that's another type of simulation. It can be a tomato that you peel to learn how to do, or a grape that you peel to learn how to do a capsulorhexis. All of that is a type of simulation. But there's also virtual reality simulation. That is, we create the world for you digitally, and that digital world then can have different characteristics that represent what you're doing. And that aspect of it then lets you engage with it in a different way, in an important way that can be safe for patients and instructive for you. Then there's another aspect, or another way of doing it that's called mixed reality, which is the ability to take things that are augmented reality. That is, you overlay digital world on real world. That's augmented reality. Many of you know what Pokemon Go is. That's this thing where they overlay this figure that shows up in your headset out in the real world. That's augmented reality. You can do the same thing. That's a type of simulation. Virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, mixed simulation, where it combines some of these elements. Those are different ways of presenting simulation today. So I wanted you to have some familiarity with those words, because those are things that you'll hear our panelists talk about. Artificial intelligence, just very briefly, I won't get into it much. I am not an expert in artificial intelligence. I hope our panelists will help expand this, but just very briefly, I already mentioned there's two types of artificial intelligence. There's language-based artificial intelligence. That is, it's an engine, a computer engine that uses algorithms to look for words, basically. And those words then form patterns. And those patterns become meaningful when you say what pattern you're looking for, and can be fed back to you as a meaningful condensation or way of gathering billions of bits of information into small packages that we in our little heads can kind of get our minds around and can benefit from greatly. That's cognitive AI. Chat GPT, great example of that, and so on. But there's another type, and there's tons of money and research going into that one, by the way. The second type of artificial intelligence, primary type, is called psychomotor artificial intelligence. This is the artificial intelligence that doesn't just look for words, it looks for actions, it looks for motion. It's psychomotor. It looks for why you're doing what your behavior you're doing, not just what you said, but what you did, and can see that. It's like a simulator that could watch you and detect what it is that you're doing and anticipate why you're doing it. That's psychomotor AI. Just like cognitive AI can look at your what do you call it? Scrolling history on your cell phone and say, I see the pattern. That guy likes hot rods, likes race cars. And it starts to show you tons of race cars because obviously you're looking for race cars. What if a simulator could watch you and detect those same sorts of things about how you're doing surgery and why you're doing what you're doing and can help you learn from your own behaviors? That's the potential of psychomotor AI. So with that, this raises tons of challenges, tons of questions about how this can become a reality for us these days. And I'm so grateful that Paul is willing to be with us. You know, he lives in that world. I cannot quite wrap my head around it, but I'm grateful we have someone who has dealt with this and can help us understand this better and some of the challenges with using these things to help us be better trainers and better surgeons. So Paul, let me just turn it over to you, get your response to some of these things I've been talking about.
Well, should we go through the deck, Glenn, or Dr. Glenn, or should we go through some
I would love to just dialogue a minute if we could start with that, is to hear your thoughts about what I've shared so far.
I mean, there's a lot in what you just said. So the world of possibility is enormous, right? What has been out of our reach for forever in my career in terms of what the technology is able to do is suddenly blown wide open by the recent developments in AI, as you described around text-based AI and visual-based AI, just creates the opportunities that were just impossibly out of reach before. I think at a very high level, the thing that I always come back to is that medical technology is a special case from most things. It's sort of in the same bucket as self-driving cars or flying airplanes, but even more so. And the reason for that is that the potential for patient harm, right? When we have computer systems that take actions on behalf of human beings, we're accustomed to doing, exactly what they're meant to do and nothing else, right? They're deterministic systems. When they start to get a little bit more creative, as we see with the tools like ChatGPT, that can be fine for drafting an email. But when that sort of variability comes into, training doctors or treating patients, that variability then becomes a liability. So the context of all this technology for me always comes back to, there are amazing characteristics of this technology that open up great new opportunities for us, but it also introduces new kinds of challenges and risks that are particularly unique to our domain, to our kind of work. So there's always a challenge of measuring how to bring these innovations to the sort of outcomes we want to have, but doing so in a way that we know is safe, assuredly safe, is telling people the right things, and is having the right outcomes. And everything I think about AI in our work starts there. It's like there's the art of the possible. There's these amazing new things that we want to do, all the stuff you described. We want to democratize access. We want to enable students to be assessed and get feedback in real time based on, their behavior inside of a digital environment. But it's got to be correct. It's got to be at least as smart as Dr. Strauss over your shoulder and never give you bad advice. And therein lies the challenges. But there's a whole world of conversation there, but I'm not sure we have enough time to go into all of it.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to having more of those conversations with you, as a matter of fact. So
yes, we will.
look forward to that. Dr. Ivo, if I could turn to you for just a moment, give you a chance to get there you go. Thank you. Because you and I share sort of a common bond. We haven't spent much time together personally. However, I feel like I know you for a variety of reasons. And one of those is just we live in the training world. I mean, you're sitting in a simulator, for goodness sakes. I mean, that's what I do every day. So it's the and with the trainees around you, there's something so special about that. It's like we've been given this gift of all these people that want to learn something that we're hoping that we can transmit to them. Could you just reflect for just a moment on kind of your perspective on this and what it might offer us going forward? And us, you and I type guys, that do this all the time.
Of course, Dr. Strauss, I think we are driven by the same passion. And I think everything you talked, which was fantastic, you talk about many things, allow us to do the most important thing of all, and it's to put the patient first. Because we are completely reshaping the way we are not only training our surgeons in the basic steps, but also, doctors who want to improve their outcomes with new techniques and many other things. So I think that will be like my first important thing to say. The second thing I would like to say, you talked about many fantastic things like augmented reality. We're going to just see this in a couple of minutes. We're going to see augmented metrics when somebody's doing. We're going to see a new way how to see the eye with a side view that is so powerful for the human brain to learn something new, right? You're not seeing only chopping by seeing what you see in the microscope, but now you're seeing the side view to understand other realities, how deep you are with the chop and things like that. But the last thing I want to reflect is that we're talking about artificial intelligence. So what I did is I actually, while you were speaking, I asked ChatGPT about artificial intelligence and how it could be implemented to our machine. And guess what? There 80% of the things that ChatGPT is telling us that we're already doing. So I got so excited because when you actually talk about artificial intelligence, this means that there are tasks that require human intelligence. Okay, sometimes we think about artificial intelligence about this fancy thing and so complex, but actually it's not. So everything we do here that needs human intelligence, we can call it artificial intelligence. So now when I'm going to do the demonstrations, you're going to see that there's at least 8 to 10 things that we're already doing. And there is also another amazing things coming in the near future.
Fantastic. So many good reminders. I especially love that priority on, this is, in the end, this is about patients benefiting. This is about reducing avoidable blindness, for goodness sakes. Across the world, it's still a major problem and such an impact on lives that it has. So the training is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. And all these things will help us, I hope. Marshall, if I could just take a minute, we're so grateful that you're part of this. And, there's companies that are engaged in this work are investing a lot of time, money, effort, resources in bringing some of these things to bear on it. I just would love to hear your perspective. You watch people use these things. You've been in this world a long time yourself. And I would love to hear some of your perspective on how you see this impacting the world of training in ophthalmology.
Well, I think from your great kind of setup for this discussion, there were two things. You talked about democratization of learning. How do you give someone in Cambodia the same opportunity to become a proficient cataract surgeon as someone who would train at a world-class eye institution like Moorfields or Wills Eye Hospital, these, shining castles that everybody reveres, and rightfully so. This discussion on the implications of AI, I think, is fascinating. But as Ivo says, I don't think relative to other applications of AI, it's as far down the road for significant impact to education as we might think. And the word I want to share with you now is convergence. What occurred to me was that you have this artificial separation of what AI can do and does do. One channel being cognitive learning. Instead of reading a textbook, you can interact with AI and it'll help your brain process information. And the other is essentially what we have historically thought of simulators as being appropriate for, which is instead of learning a capsulorhexis on a human being, you can learn it on an artificial eye, a pig eye, a super expensive German-made simulator that's computer-based, or a synthetic eye, or a tomato, as you alluded to. So these are task trainers. But I would argue that there needs to be a convergence. And in fact, this is the exciting implication for today, is that I don't think when you say, oh, we have a trainee that has great cognitive capacity, but appallingly bad psychomotor skills, that he's ripe to have a good career as a surgeon. Conversely, someone might have amazing discrete motor movements and has the manual dexterity of a world-class cataract surgeon, but consistently demonstrates suboptimal intraocular surgical judgment. So we cannot have one without the other. And I think the beauty of AI and what Dr. Ferrara will show you is that where the rubber hits the road is we can and will leverage artificial intelligence in conjunction with virtual reality to change the game. So when you look at that survey at the outset, I think this is game changing. There's no question about it. And I defy anybody when we go through the live demonstrations to say otherwise, because what you need to learn is variability. A static model does not give you variability. By having variability from an adult learning science perspective, we know we train the brain. That's cognitive learning. And in parallel, you have to have variability to allow you to refine your psychomotor skills. So that's why I go back to point one, being convergence. So
Love
yeah,
that.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I've learned, I've already
Dr.
learned
Strauss.
more from this webinar right here. So I've learned a lot from all of you. Yes, Dr. Evo.
Let me interrupt because you are getting into an area which I love, and we're talking about the psychomotor skills. We're talking about the cognitive skills, but I'm going to remind you what we also train here and have a heart rate monitored for our students, meaning that we also train the mindset skills. And simulation allow us to put very complex scenarios and even inoculate stress sometimes to get all these mindset skills to how to be focused, how to manage anxiety, and many other things that also you can do in a simulated environment, which in my opinion, after doing this for 8 years, are sometimes even the most important ones. So I'm loving the discussion, and it's very deep,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, watching that the surgeon whose shoulders are up around their ears, holding tightly, trying to get, isn't going to work. Too much fear. Their heart rate is 140. Yeah, so true, so true. So simulation can help de-stress the surgeon, prepare them for this. So true. I want to come back though to another issue, and that is it was an issue that Paul, you raised as you were talking, and that is, there's a difference between information that is determinate, you described it, determinate simulations, and indeterminate. And one of the things that happens or one of the things we have to wrestle with is this challenge of, as we sort of transition for better training purposes to information that is, I took my finger off what you're going to hear now. That means it's indeterminate. I've now taken my finger off. This is how I expect you to use the Simcoe cannula when you're doing your M6. But I'm going to help you learn how the cannula works so that you can decide how to use the Simcoe cannula better. That is now indeterminate learning, and it's relational by its very nature. It's something that we learn at a deeper level than we learn at a cognitive level. It's that thing you walk away from and you go, wow, I can see that I did this better, but it wasn't like you analyzed everything you did. It's that you gradually learn to do it better. That kind of learning is fascinating to me and an important part of all of this discussion, I think. And I would, if you would, I would like you to take a minute to maybe cue up your slide deck for us. I'd like to hear more about what's happening with FXR, the company that you're working with, and the work that they're doing. And we'll talk about that for a little bit. And then Marshall and Dr. Ferrier will go to your demonstration immediately after that. So Paul, would you go ahead and just take us through some of your thoughts about the challenges and the opportunities and things that are already progressing?
Good stuff, right? So, thanks for the time to speak to the audience, Dr. Strauss. I'm going to take a bit of time here to share what our experience has been at Fundamental XR, helping bring to life an immersive VR training platform developed in partnership with Orbis, and what we've learned about how best to make a positive impact in the regions of the world with limited access to what might be considered traditional surgical training opportunities. So who are Fundamental VR? Well, now XR. Sorry, VR is our old name, XR. Uh, yes, we design immersive XR experiences that accelerate learning, improve adoption, etc. XR is extended reality, which is an evolution of the technologies that we traditionally call virtual reality. So augmented reality, the sorts of applications you might see in a mobile phone, VR applications like we traditionally associate with this, but also web experiences, audio experiences, and things like Pixel Buds and AirPods Pros, the smart glasses that are coming to the market. So we design across all of these experiences in order to accelerate learning uh, in healthcare. So that's the corporate tagline. What does that really mean for this group? I'd like you to watch a quick testimonial video from some of our partners. So again, hands up if you can't hear it, please.
65% of blindness in India is because of cataract. Unfortunately, we don't have enough trained surgeons. With the help of fundamental VR, you can train doctors quickly and safely.
The tactile feedback that you get while training in virtual reality does make you more confident of what you're going to be doing in the real OR.
When you have well-trained surgeons, you feel very confident. That helps the whole society.
So I hope you enjoyed that. We all know Orbis's mission is to build strong and sustainable eye care systems globally to prevent and treat avoidable blindness illnesses. When we started with Orbis, they brought to us some key training challenges that they'd identified that are, preventing us from achieving these goals easily, especially for cataracts training. So there's no reliable way to validate surgical skill competencies levels of ophthalmology surgeons across the globe. No single reliable way. Meaningful simulation of these surgical techniques is historically only available via quite exotic, unwieldy, and can be capitally intensive equipment and consumables. So that limits their accessibility. M6 is still the most common technique of cataract surgery in many developing countries, but finding volunteers to train ophthalmologists in the developing world in M6 is increasingly difficult as it is not a commonly used procedure in the developed world. Because of this, there's really no easily scalable way to simulate, train, and evaluate ophthalmology surgeons, which will lead to reduced consistency in practice, reduced quality of training or variable quality of training, increased cost overall, and of course, ultimately, that can result in suboptimal patient outcomes. So this is the solution that you can see on the screen now, and you saw in the video earlier. This is the Orbis virtual reality simulator. So Orbis have partnered with us to develop a low-cost tool that enables and facilitates the safe and repeatable hands-on cataract surgery training and education across the world at scale. So our goal is to increase the adoption of this technology to reduce the load on the in-person training and proctoring in a cost-effective manner. So what you're looking at here in the photo is a student wearing, well, I think it's a student, I'll presume it's a student, wearing a MetaQuest virtual reality headset connected to a Windows PC that's got a screen, sort of a high-end laptop, and some haptics force feedback controllers, those funny things she's holding that have the articulated arms. These are all running fundamental XR software. So she is currently immersed in the matrix in a virtual simulation and getting directed instruction and feedback via the software. By virtue of holding onto those haptic controllers, she's able to also feel what it is like to perform this procedure on a real patient. When she presses on a material, she gets force feedback. She can feel the texture. She can tell when she's hit some harder tissue or some softer tissue. And importantly, she's able to retry these tasks as often as she likes. She can make mistakes. She can go back and try over again. There's no harm done. Uh, she can work at her own pace and practice the things that she needs to practice as often as she likes. I honestly wish that that everyone here could actually experience it right now, because until you feel it, it can be quite alien looking, but it is genuinely a fascinating experience. It's genuinely immersive. So standing back to make this happen, what have we done at Fundamental XR? So we take commercial off-the-shelf commodity hardware and combine it with bespoke adaptable software to deliver this solution. So it's a more open approach, right? By taking that more open approach, it's less expensive to develop overall. It's easier to implement in the field. And then importantly, it could evolve over time as a platform for multiple training programs, including this one. And all this means that we can make it readily available to far more users around the world than some of the other options. Right. Of course, virtual training can only be part of the longer journey. It's not a substitute for the real deal. So novice surgeons are upskilled through a comprehensive training program. Everyone on the call knows this better than I do. That combines remote learning platforms such as CyberSight, e-learning on CyberSight, plus virtual reality or other virtual simulation learning platforms. As you progress through these steps, learners build knowledge of the procedure as well as the manual, the psychomotor skills, as Dr. Strauss calls them, I'm learning. The students pick up the knowledge of how the procedure works, how it works well, and then get practice in those manual skills and earn and gain the dexterity that you need in order to make the most of the subsequent training that comes later. So those are more resources retensive, they're more scarce. So we front load all that motor skill training and other information gathering, if you will, earlier in the process so that the focus in the later phases can be much more meaningful in terms of skills acquisition. So we're really an accelerant. We shorten the overall learning curve for students so that they can have the confidence that at the end that they've learned the best they can and made the most of their time. The final point that I'll make on this slide is that Orbis and Fundamental XR not only deliver the simulation tools and the materials, but we also work with local Orbis teams and hospital partners to integrate these simulations into the existing training curriculums that exist in these facilities. That's the only way to make these things effective. And we all benefit and learn faster by working closely together. So a quick timeline for the last 6 months of what we've been doing together. The goal is really about adoption and utilization of the technology today and getting it well integrated into local curriculums. And in order to do that, we've been focusing on providing educational leadership support to those teams. The program's been expanding. We're strengthening relationships with existing partners while also making new collaborations worldwide. And to date, we've conducted 5 multi-day hospital-based trainings with several more planned before the end of the year. These collaborative sessions provide invaluable feedback from end users, from the novice surgeons, as well as from the experienced trainers and learners of the residency programs that we take on board to improve our overall implementation plans and the software itself. I'm particularly excited on this slide. It may not jump out at others, but I'm really enjoying the fact that we're able to expand the languages that the training is available in. We've of course started with English, but it's now available in simplified Chinese with Mongolian and Spanish coming this month. And shortly thereafter, in the remainder of the year, we'll be rolling out French, Portuguese, and Vietnamese. And to me, that's a real showcase of the power of these sort of open technologies that we use. We're able to build a simulation and a training platform that captures the insights and the training governance or the training insights that Dr. Strauss could give to a room full of students. And using technology, we translate it to in as many languages as we want using digital technology. Just a quick slide about some of the outcomes and numbers. I'll leave you to digest those in your own time. But I am particularly proud of the uptick that we've seen in planned launches, and the number of simulators that we have in the field. And frankly, the sheer number of trainees that we've been able to support, it shows that we're really on the right path to having the impact that we set out to have. And I will not mention how jealous I am that our customer success team gets to do these trips to these exotic places, and I do not. We're still quite early in the journey. The solution only launched in the field from earlier or this time last year. But by virtue of approach, that we're able to gather data, respond to the feedback, and evolve the solution, we're learning and improving in real time, again, through that close collaboration with our partners, which is reflected in the numbers showing our solution has increasing impact over time. So today we have more trainees using the simulation. They're using it for longer. They use it more often, and they're getting better assessment results. And we're very proud of these numbers, and we know that they'll only continue to go up. Right. So that's the stuff that you can anticipate. I think sort of the more interesting things for all of us are the things you can't anticipate, the sorts of things that we went into the field and reality decided to teach us a lesson. And the four that jump out from myself and the team is how much of the value of the experience and the immersiveness comes from that what Dr. Strauss is describing of that combined visual and tactile interaction, and how that leads to the deep learning that we need in order to practice these skills in real life. And for us, so much came down to the realistic haptic feedback. So, everyone, including me, technologists can tell if something looks right or not. But does it feel right? You really need to have experts tell you what the real world feels like relative to the simulation. That's where we work closely with experts like Dr. Glenn, and we manifest that in the software. We're also learning loads about this by getting feedback from the surgeons and the trainers in the field. Next on the list is, we maybe we have a bit of a myopia. Well, that's a bad term for this audience. A bit of a short-sightedness about how easy it is to use VR. But the truth is that virtual reality headsets, as we use, are still not a commonly used technology. And people have to get accustomed to it. They haven't got don't have it in their pocket like they do their phone. So there's friction around using that technology before we can actually get them into the training that they're there to do. So we are doing lots of work to train the trainer on site to eliminate the sort of setup confusion and help students orient in the software before they get into it. So there's not so much of a learning curve there. But we're also tailoring the software over time to address what we learn are usability experience issues from the field. And wherever we can to reduce friction, wherever we can intervene to reduce friction, we are. And again, the language thing, every new product idea, at least every new digital product idea, tends to start in English when it's built in the Western world, but then quickly finds itself getting pulled into regions and languages that you hadn't anticipated. We've had that experience. We found that in order to have impact, we need to get this in front of trainees in China and Mongolia in particular. So we've implemented, since our original plans, we've added a system in the Orbis solution that allows us to add new languages to the system with much less effort than before. And that's a real win. Finally, metrics and data, right? So everybody builds software knowing that you can measure what's going on in there and derive insights from that. But in reality, it can only tell us so much about how well we are doing having the impact that we want to have. And we learned again that nothing beats being in the field with our partners, learning with them, adapting with them. Technologists like myself can think technology can solve everything, but training, especially advanced surgical training, is really about the human knowledge and experience sharing. So we learned that the best thing for us is to be there and partake in that shared experience. Right, and my final slide for this group. So where are we going in terms of AI? So the four boxes on the screen are really the four core themes of where we see AI enhancing our core mission here. And we envision a future where every ophthalmic resident worldwide can benefit from these things, live feedback, adaptive learning, all in an immersive mixed reality environment. So where are we researching? So these areas are where we can give real-time feedback and coaching during procedures. It's not an Orbis solution yet, but we have already, FXR have already a solution in this space and are developing a next generation version today. It's also helpful to learn from expert simulated surgeons. It's an enhanced version of see one, do one, teach one. We can also, and this is something I'm particularly excited by, and I think addresses some of the points that were raised earlier. This is the point about adaptive learning. We can take, increasingly, we can take our simulation from that static sort of approach to one that is more dynamic to the needs of the individual learner at the moment. So we can evolve the training from a rote, predetermined regimen that a sheer novice needs to one that can scale up and down to the needs of the skill levels of the trainee. Maybe we have an experienced surgeon coming into the simulation. They don't need to understand the basics or learn the tools. They need to understand the procedure, and the simulation can identify that and adapt that need in real time. And then finally, the learning curve, shortening learning curve. The real opportunity here is to provide instant data-driven insights and suggestions as the student practices, rather as a post-assessment in some sort of debrief after having done the training. So we can have agents in the simulation that are understanding and observing the user and intervene or answer questions for that user in real time. And I said, and I'll anchor my point I said earlier again. So there's some really interesting technical challenges that we've had that are melting away because of this explosion in AI technologies. But there's a real risk to getting AI-powered training wrong, right? If we teach people the wrong thing, we're doing the opposite of our intended mission. So the question always becomes, how do we have the assurance that we are training people in the right way every time? So we're progressing cautiously here, and we've found that it's essential for us to develop our ideas and concepts in collaboration with our partners like Orbis to make sure that they have the confidence and the assurability that we are working together to have a meaningfully positive impact. So watch this space. There's definitely more coming soon.
Yeah.
Thank
you so much. And we'll come back to this. I'd like to come back to this slide at the very end, actually, just to kind of review, kind of talk through everything and then give everyone a chance to respond to that. The Dr. Evo and Marshall a chance to respond to that too. But I'm particularly interested in, this idea of, how we can take adaptive autonomous models for learning and install them in simulation and how that might help us advance the whole process a little further. But right now, we're kind of in a corrective phase, I would call it, in the marketplace, it seems to me. This is just my personal opinion and my reflection, for what it's worth, that there was a big craze that simulation was going to solve everything, right? So massive amounts of interest in simulation, buying simulators. And I think we've gone through, and myself included, a phase of, that wasn't all it was cracked up to be. It didn't turn out to do everything we thought it would do. And so I think we're in a corrective phase where we're now we need to start asking ourselves some of these questions, like you have raised and are beginning to answer exactly what FXR is doing. I also love the idea that what Marshall, Hogstrite, Dr. Evo are working on are solutions that bring it right into the operating room. So these overlays so that you can have adaptive reality, things that let you look at what you're doing in a different light. You're still got the reality of the surgical simulation. You don't have to simulate that. The patient is there. So this is now a chance to look at it from a different point of view, if we could import that. But it's not quite to that point, but I would like to see, I haven't seen it yet. So I'm very anxious to see what Dr. Evo has been doing and turn it over to you guys, Dr. Ferriera and Marshall, to lead us through a demonstration of what you guys have been doing, and then we'll wrap it all up.
Okay, great. What we're going to do is take all this theoretical, euphoric discussion on the implications of AI and put it in the context of real learning today. And really what we are talking about is the tandem of artificial intelligence with virtual reality and how this is going to reshape ophthalmic learning forever. So I don't want to get into the weeds because like Glenn, I'm not a scientist. I'm certainly not a physicist. But in the huge tree and branches that is the emerging science of AI, there are a few very specific branches that are relevant to this topic of how you inject virtual reality, or sorry, artificial intelligence into improving surgical learning and training in virtual reality. The general branch is machine learning, followed by a supervised learning with simulation. And the beauty of this is the simulator is a computer. Every single training session generates limitless data. And that's what's driving the whole implication for impactful use of AI. In a more kind of focused context, a branch of AI that's relevant to this discussion is narrow AI, meaning this is a task trainer. And what we're doing is we're going to harness the power of the simulation data to teach the AI to do exactly the things that we talked about, which is in the absence of Dr. Ferrara or Dr. Strauss sitting shotgun at the side microscope in the operating theater, that the AI would play that role and give you in real time the feedback that you need as a learner to actually progress to the level of surgical proficiency. And then finally, assistive AI. So again, very similar to narrow AI in that what we're trying to do is harness the limitless computer data that's created from every simulation task and then repackage that so that it gives you ongoing guidance on the appropriate technique or feedback on choices made during a practice session. So let's pause for a second and ask some questions. Is it possible that in the absence of a human mentor, AI through real-time performance data can recognize your errors and can communicate areas for improvement in a simulated cataract surgery training? I mean, in broad strokes, I think that's what we've talked about for the last hour and a bit as kind of an aspirational thing that maybe someday we could get to. I would argue that we're much closer to that, and Dr. Ferrara is going to demonstrate that in about 3 minutes. So, as Dr. Ferrara mentioned earlier, we believe that to arrive at surgical readiness, the combination of AI and virtual reality will train simultaneously a proficient surgeon who must have, number one, mindset skills. How do I maintain composure in suboptimal conditions? Cognitive skills. How do I have the appropriate observational skills to make appropriate choices in any given scenario, and the ability to recognize when a modification to a technique is required to deliver the outcome that is needed for the patient. And then finally, psychomotor skills. So, as I said in the panel discussion earlier, we see a convergence with AI as a mentor and simulation, leading to what we hope will be a pathway for continuous improvement in cataract surgery. So in the live demos that we're going to do shortly, we're going to show you 3 or 4 examples. Number one, let's talk about that novice, the true beginner. Could AI guide that novice through the foundational aspects of learning how to do the basic technique of divide and conquer. So what if AI could, during phaco training, coach that trainee to understand the interaction of their instrumentation on anatomical structures and discrete tissues so that we don't cause unwanted compromising of zonular integrity? What if an artificial intelligence could train a novice to have the understanding of what the appropriate sculpt technique would be so that they had the appropriate depth of the trench, the appropriate length of the trench, and width, leading to the ability to then effectively crack that nucleus? These are all foundational aspects of being a competent, consistent cataract surgeon. But again, going back to the idea of continuous improvement in surgery, if you aspire to be a master, you will invariably look to reduce your phaco times. The best way we have to do that is with a slightly more advanced technique known as phaco chop. So again, what is the implication as you transition from basic phaco surgery into more advanced techniques? What if AI could, during the learning of these advanced techniques like phaco chop, act as your coach to teach you the appropriate phaco pedal position so that you understand, or as Dr. Ferrara says, I must have heard him say this 1,000 times, listen to your pedal. You know, the audible cues that tell you you have the optimal occlusion of the nucleus. Can AI coach a trainee to understand the position of the lens fragment on the phaco tip for safe extraction of that lens piece in what we all know to be called the safe zone? And then finally, could the AI coach a trainee on understanding the optimal chopper position in relationship to anatomical structures and soft tissue so that their chopping technique actually facilitates a segmentation of the cataract lens? Moving forward, you know, we've discussed what simulation is, and it's essentially, in the larger education community, understood to be a task trainer. So we teach capsulorhexis, we teach irrigation aspiration, we teach phaco divide and conquer. These are all steps of cataract surgery. But what if AI could act as a mentor in a dynamic environment that actually brings the complete cataract surgery together? So AI could teach the trainee through a complete case where every step, capsulorhexis, hydrodissection, phaco, IA, and lens implantation, are all done with every step interconnected. Could it coach the trainee to understand different instrumentation and how these choices for what instruments you use can optimize the procedure or make the procedure more complex and challenging for you? And then finally, can AI teach proficiency in significant anterior segment surgical complications? The example that we will show you is something most surgeons I've learned over the years, even the ones that are super good at cataract surgery, hence they have very few complications, really do not like having, which is a posterior capsule rupture. So what if AI could, during the training, guide you through the management of complications? So what if the AI technology could coach the trainee through how to manage a complication like a PCR and prolapsed vitreous? Can AI coach a trainee to manage stress in this dreaded event, so that you make good choices by maintaining focus and mindfulness? And then finally, can AI coach that trainee on how and when to undertake the technique of anterior vitrectomy safely so that they avoid doing harm? So these are all real world scenarios where you're going to see examples of how the existing technology of IC surgical simulator with the emerging technology of AI can be, as we said at the outset, game-changing. So now for the good part. So Dr. Farrar, I'm going to turn it over to you, and if you would demonstrate for us the beginner experience and how, and I'm glad you used this term, Paul and Glenn, autonomous features, because essentially this is central to our whole learning methodology. In the absence of you, Glenn, or you, Ivo, how does a novice learn phaco divide and conquer? So I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Farrar.
Thank you very much. And yes, I think this webinar has been so fantastic. There's so many insights. My personal insight now is that we don't need to think about artificial intelligence of we're doing it or we're not doing it, but shadows of gray, right? Because every time I hear Paul, I hear Marshall, and I hear Dr. Strauss talk, we are already doing a lot of artificial intelligence, and what is going to happen is going to improve much more. The first thing I really want to show, because it's going to be before simulation, is my personal computer. In my personal computer, I'm going to get it close to the camera. Let's see if you can see those. You're going to see a list of all my students in which stage of their training are. And also, I'm going to get all this data from them. If I press one specific button, I'm going to see all the benchmarking data of their training. Again, imagine the power, like in this case, we have, let's see there, we have 4 different benchmarks for this specific student and how he's doing with the training. So, Dr. Strauss was talking about metrics. We already have them, and we can do fantastic thing with them. For example, how to personalize the training of somebody, or how to get insight about which are the more difficult tasks for certain kind of trainer. So as Marshall said, I'm going to bring you guys in a journey, and we're going to start with basic skills, and we're going to go to very complex skills too. So that brings me to the other concept that Paul was talking about adaptive learning and how to deconstruct complex tasks. We're going to do exactly that. But also, with what Dr. Strauss said, we're going to use a lot of augmented reality. Remember, for the human brain to learn, we need patterns. We need to understand the interaction between different structures. So in this case, you're going to see how augmented reality is going to be extremely powerful for somebody learning, in this case, divide and conquer. Okay? So here you're going to see a case in which you're going to have a hard cataract with the capsular rexis stain and already done. And what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to do a divide and conquer technique. Also, I need to be very careful. I need to open my screen here and put my settings. It's really important for me to put the correct ultrasound for this type of cataract, the correct vacuum, the correct flow, and I can pick many second instruments in order to face this case. So what I'm going to do, you're going to see also in the left upper corner, you're going to see irrigation, aspiration, and ultrasound. And the machine in the lower left side is going to tell me how that specific step that she's asking me for me to do is advancing. I can also do some certain mistakes, so you can see what is going on here. Okay, I'm going to enter the eye with irrigation aspiration. As I said, this is my second instrument. It's very important that I take my time to focus. I don't know if you saw how it was, slightly, but I needed to focus anyway. And I'm going to start, look at this. I'm going to advance in 3, second back in 1. And one of the things I love is that side view that Marshall was showing you in the past. Imagine how important for me is to see how deep I am in that sculpting. Because if I'm a novice and I'm doing this for my first times, I need to understand, I need to see those patterns, okay, that they're telling me that I'm deep enough. If you see the side view in this case, I achieved a perfect depth in that trench. So the green line disappears. Now I'm going to rotate that nucleus. Then the green line appears again and it's guiding me. Again, remember, step by step. Let's think that is my first or maybe second or third time that I'm doing this. And the machine, by augmented reality, is guiding me how to do it better. Okay? Imagine also when we have a new technique. Maybe I'm an expert and maybe I need to do a new technique. Shouldn't be important for me to have guidance in order how to do a Yamane technique, for example? Okay? So when I'm ready, you need to see how, now other augmented reality features appear and it says, okay, now you are able to crack that nucleus. So I need to go deep with my two instruments. This is not easy. Actually, when we do service, people say that cracking the nucleus is sometimes the most challenging step. So I'm gonna go deep. Now I'm cracking the nucleus. No, I cracked half. I need to be very careful too, because one of the great things about the simulator, and we have been working a lot, is how those structures relate to each other. How, when I'm cracking, I can stress the sonula. So I'm doing kind of a nice job. Let's do a bad job. What do you guys think? People like sometimes complicated, right?
Radical.
But let's say I'm a novice, and let's say I'm just pushing down. I'm not stressing the sonula. Look at the machine. It's telling me, hey, doctor, you avoid unnecessary stress of the sonula. That's not right. The sonula is suffering, then it's going to be doctor, you just went to position 0. Look at your camera. You're losing anterior chamber. This is very complex. You can, oh my God, the anterior chamber has collapsed. Those things need training hours, right? Flying hours. Like if you ask me, the dream of my life will be to copy everything that the airplane industry does with their pilots, which should be, certified. We should be simulating every 6 months. We should be doing what they call simulation outside the box. There's so many things we should be doing. Okay, but let's say I cracked it. Now I need to switch my settings. I go to quadrant removal, as you see, and this is one of my favorite features in which if I go for this fragment, okay, and I want to do ultrasound in a place that is too low, look at the color of that fragment. It's going to turn red. It's saying, doctor, that's not the correct place to deliver ultrasound. If I bring it to the safety zone, perfect, you are in green. But what if I'm doing ultrasound close to the endothelium? Not good, right? Doctor, again, you are in red. Just go to the safety zone and turn that fragment green. So I do it, sometimes looks easy, but let's say I don't have the correct settings. Let's say I'm gonna lower the ultrasound and I'm gonna lower the vacuum. So I'm not gonna be, what I'm doing is just experiments. I'm pushing phaco to the limit. So now, you see, I'm not efficient. I just can't do a nice job. I cannot bring the fragment disappears. So I completely did a compromise of my phaco dynamics. So as Marshall said, I'm learning in a dynamic environment, changing scenarios, and because of that, I'm learning pattern recognition and decision making. So my cognitive skills are being trained a lot. In my opinion, the best part, yes, Marshall.
This is why I think we're really on the cusp of a convergence where we're able to train these 3 foundational pillars of mindset skills, cognitive skills, and motor skills simultaneously. But would you be so kind as to say, okay, so in a aspirational context in ophthalmic education, where we want and hope that simulation will lead to surgical proficiency and provide all motivated learners a pathway to continuous improvement surgically, demonstrate for us how someone who becomes good at phaco divide and conquer, then through autonomous learning features, can transition into a more advanced technique like horizontal chop.
Yes, I'm going to do an horizontal chop. And now also what I can do is I start to remove all this guidance from augmented reality. So after I understand these patterns, now I need to make my own decisions. But just before I go there, I really want to share this because Dr. Strauss, I'm pretty sure is going to be completely aligned with me in this case. When you are an educator, you understand that you don't learn by doing, you learn by reflecting of what you did and what happened. So here we're going to show in the screen. Let's do a little bit of remember the monitor. I didn't put the monitor on me because I'm probably very stressed and a high heart rate, but look at this. So now I have, right? We were talking about this. We were talking about metrics. We were talking about measuring what happened. We have, and actually I have it in colors. In this case, the machine is telling me, doctor, you did touch the cornea. So the tissue treatment was not that perfect. I'm gonna remove 9 points from your performance. Doctor, you did have a chamber collapse. That's not good for the eye as well. And actually, if I have, because this is autonomous training, if I go to actually a certain button here, I have the information for what happened and why the machine is making these decisions. And my favorite tool, which I believe when we go to an artificial intelligence definition, is a video like we call the time lapse. In the time lapse, the person training is able to see what's happening in that surgery. And in every single mistake he did, you're going to have a stop, okay? And in that stop, it's going to tell you which was the mistake and how many points are removed from you right here. I really want you to see the implications of anybody in training. This is absolutely fantastic. We have seen, and again, the learning curve and the pattern recognition training of people have been go to the roof with this kind of, self-guided training features. Now, as Marshall
We
said,
are our own worst critics, right? So you see your video and you go, oh man, that stinks. That was terrible. So here's the problem. We're about at the end of our time. And I would like to be able to see this next portion. But let me pause your demonstration just for a bit. And those who are able to stay past the end of the seminar, we can hang on for just a little bit of time afterwards. But let me ask for Paul. Would you have any comments or feedback? Sort of a wrap up a bit of what we've come to. This time passed a lot faster than than I thought. So this is really, really good information. I think enjoyed it very much. Paul, any last comments that you might have?
But by the way, fantastic demonstration is, for a non-surgeon, that's just fascinating for me to see. Wrapping up thoughts, I think we can all see the world of possibility here, and I like Marshall's framing of the convergence. It is converging. It's at our doorstep. It's already here in many ways. AI is a new term for relatively old technology. So we're seeing things accelerate from a basis that we've had them for a while. I don't know. There's some really good questions. I've been watching the Q&A channel, so it's interesting the way people are thinking about what does this mean in terms of the expertise that people will need to acquire in the future if these advances get so good at training or giving feedback to people in real time, to novices. What does that mean for the level of expertise required to perform these specialist procedures? So I guess I'll end on that, right? Like the really exciting bit here is we get it right. The technologies get implemented safely and correctly. It is going to have a genuinely accelerating effect on not just the availability of expertise, but the depth of those expertise. I think that's where I'll stop.
And a lot of the questions, if I could just close our general discussion here, just a lot of those questions also have to do with accessibility of these things at various sites. If you could, each of you, Marshall, first, just what's the access to this that you've just demonstrated out there in the world? Could you just comment about that? What's the current situation?
Yeah, I mean, what to say. I mean, obviously, Egypt and Ethiopia and Cambodia and other low-income countries obviously struggle with resources. That said, we literally put a system into Nepal this year. So I think, as I always say to educators, different regions have different challenges and require different solutions. One can talk about agnostic, low-cost hardware as a possible avenue. I think for us, we're exploring how to bring this technology to all motivated learners, irrespective of their socioeconomic status. But to be frank, it's a work in progress. But I think we'll kind of wrap it up by saying we believe that the implications of AI in surgical training is here now. It's not in the future. It's here now. And regrettably, we were cut short a little bit on the live surgery piece that would bring that home, but I think people get the point.
Yeah, thank you. Paul, last comments about accessibility and where that's headed from your point of view.
Well, it's a great question. Again, the point that I made earlier about the platforms we're using being open sort of computing platforms. The technology is scaling down to those platforms as well as those platforms scaling up to the technology. So it's absolutely ready. There are also leaps and bounds being made in the devices that are available to people. So that's in terms of the power of those things, but also we're watching the developments in the smart glasses spaces particularly closely because it's going to democratize access to the hardware even more than virtual reality headsets. So yeah, this is all, the inexorable march of the power computing curve towards more power in everyone's pocket is coming. It's going to have nothing but upside for accessibility.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. I can say from the Orbis point of view, they certainly are anxious to partner with those that are able and willing to work with us and installation of these things in their training programs and so on. So certainly can reach out to Orbis for more information. Marshall, I think is this system available with existing IC simulators, or is it an add-on or just a software upload? What is the...
No, Glenn, what you're seeing today is universally available. It's the latest software iteration that's essentially an annual update that we do to all subscribers. So, what we see, as Ivo and I always say, is the simulator is organic. The platform is the platform. It's the conduit by which you practice. If I was a tennis coach, I would say the simulator is a tennis ball machine. The magic is you as a mentor and the software as a mechanism for variable practice. Again, going back to tennis, you could be a great tennis coach, a motivated learner, but if all you're going to hit is backhands, well, the other kid on game day is going to trounce you because he's going to hit forehands to you and volleys, right? So you need the variation in task.
Yes.
So yes, it's widely available today.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I just thank you all very much. Again, I've said we would take just a few minutes after we officially close the meeting I would personally like to see the rest of your demonstration. So if you guys would be so kind as to hang on to do that. Dr. Ivo, are you able to do that for us? Is he still there? Yes, he's still there.
I think they want to see horizontal chop and anterior vitrectomy.
Oh, sure. No.
Yeah,
We have some.
I would love to see that if you're willing to hang on to do that. Others may need to go. I understand that.
Strauss, you will love to see anterior vitrectomy as well. So we can do a volume 2 in another time because that is epic, because that's something that not even experts get to do a lot, because they get so good that they don't break posterior capsules, and there's many new things coming up. But here actually, let's put the picture in picture, please. And I'm gonna do a vertical chop on purpose, Why? Because every time we see and we do surveys around the world, less than 2% of surgeons do vertical chop, even experts. And we have many, many examples in how when you do vertical chop in a very safe way, which I'm going to do, and then I'm going to do some mistakes, you can actually face extremely hard cataracts and be extremely efficient with ultrasound delivery. So again, I'm going to do vertical chop with guidance. Remember that also have the chance to do it without guidance because after you learn, you need to perform, right? One thing is to learn and to be in a training environment, and the other thing is to be in a performing environment. So in this case, as you can see, I need to have the correct settings. Okay, I'm gonna put burst mode with a ultrasound of 60 and a high vacuum of 450 because I want the holding. And very important as well is to pick the correct second instrument that you're gonna see is very complex to manage because it's basically a needle that could be very damaging even to the incision when you're entering, you see it? So what I need to do now is I need to go and verticalize my phaco tip into the nucleus, do a position 2, little bit of 3, as you can see, go back to 2. I show that I have a high vacuum and holding, so I'm right in the nucleus, and you're going to see a line not only in the microscope view but in the side view, because here the trick is I need to go deep. Look at this. I need to go deep in a vertical mode. I need to come to the phaco tip, and then I'm going to do the cracking movement. And let me be honest with you guys. This that you look that it's easy is not easy. And if you think I'm a superhuman and my hands were touched by God or something, you are wrong again. What I'm trained. I have flying hours, I have been seeing my feedback, and then I'm able to do that task that it looks easy, but it's not easy. When you see somebody who is a novice, is going to struggle. So now let's try to do the common mistakes that people do when we're doing vertical chop. For example, here, you can even damage, other structures. You can go to 0 because, again, that second instrument, is very sharp. One other thing is people don't impale too much or push look at that. I'm stressing the sonula because I'm pushing down. And if you see the side view, this could be very, very, very dangerous for the eye. And then when I'm doing the chop, people don't follow the line. And look at this, okay? I'm doing a lot of mistakes. People also sometimes go deep. I can break the posterior capsule. So now I'm in big trouble. Think about it. I have a hard cataract. I have a posterior capsular break. Okay. And what should I do? What should I do? So what I'm trying to say here, simulation, as Marshall perfectly said, it shouldn't be about one chance only and do some, motor skills, but the cognitive aspect of it, what decisions I'm going to do now, and most of all, the mindset skills in order to be focused and to be relaxed and calm, now to make the best decisions with this very complex eye. Again, as you can probably see, I can see my metrics of everything I do. And, I can also, see the time-lapse video in which they're going to tell you which mistakes and when I did it. I don't know if you want me to keep going or do another thing.
I think for the sake of time, we probably should wrap it up today. I think it has been fantastic. I'd like to leave with people wanting more, and so let's call it for today. Any last comments from our panelists today? Marshall, any last comments from you?
No, I mean, I think this has been a fascinating conversation on the possibilities of leveraging artificial intelligence in conjunction with existing technologies like virtual reality to change the game. And I guess my take-home message is it's not aspirational, that it's happening right now. And if you see these examples with the real-time feedback and just connect the dots intellectually, we're not talking years. This is happening right now. So,
excellent. Dr. Pierre, anything for you, my new friend in training?
So sorry, what it was for me?
Yes, I said anything from you, my friend, my new friend in training. I'm asking if you have any last comments.
No, I really want to thank you guys for the time. Again, I think you said it, Dr. Strauss, in the beginning. We share so much. I spend 80% of my time here in this environment. If you turn the cameras, you're going to see other people in training in this exact moment. This is what we do. This is what we love. This is the passion of our lives. And this is also exponential. The impact with simulation becomes exponential. So more than happy if anybody who was here with us has any more questions in the future, I'm very active in any social media, so happy to talk to them.
Thank you. And Paul, any last comments?
Last comments from me. Very exciting. I love the demo. I love that we're thinking a lot of similar things and share the excitement for what's coming. It's really satisfying just knowing that there are students out there asking great questions and reminding. I get to be reminded of the wonderful impact that we can have. Last, there were a lot of really thoughtful questions in the Q&A that we didn't have time to get to. So if any of those are directed my way, please reach out you can find our website using Google or find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to address any of those. You got questions about accessibility and pricing and all that sort of stuff. Find us. We'll get you that information as quick as we can. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you all again. Appreciate your time and great to have this time with each of you. And I look forward to what the future holds for all of us in this. Thanks, then.